Welcome to this live tribe call, guys. We began the live tribe calls almost 3 years ago at the beginning of the pandemic, knowing that men were especially alone during that time, especially isolated. And we never want to feel like we're on an island just within our own selves, within our own heart, within our pain, within our brotherhood. And that's why we began this. I've known Steve Horseman for, oh geez, eight years, something like that now. I've been in this profession myself for about 15 years, started my private practice 7 years ago, something like this. And I could tell more of my stories another time, absolutely. But I'm here to connect with you in these live tribe calls. And our topic of today is good pressure versus bad pressure. If you know me, you know that I very much cherish and value interaction with you guys. I'm here to connect with you. So this isn't just to sit back, listen to Jeff talk for an hour, hour and a half. This is for me to connect with you guys. So good pressure versus bad pressure. How to think about I want space when she says I want space. Should I initiate sex is a question guys ask me all the time. And I don't want to push her away anymore. So let's not make those mistakes. A bit of housekeeping. This is being recorded and this will be shown within Good Guys to Great Men and Great Men Move Mountains. Good Guys to Great Men, of course, I'm an affiliate with Steve Horseman and Dan Dorr and many other coaches there. And my company, my website is Great Men Move Mountains, greatmenmovemountains.com. So this will be shown there. I love when you guys keep your cameras on and come in and talk with me. Many men can't show up live. And so they and all of us benefit from your stories, from you coming on in here and asking questions and sharing your spot. Absolutely. So before we get into it, has anyone seen this shirt? When I was doing research for today, I found this screen print and I was confused and kind of disgusted and laughed out loud at the same time. It says, I never dreamed I'd grow up to be a spoiled wife of a grumpy old husband, but here I am killing it. What the hell is this shirt? What the? Unmute yourself and come on in and tell me what the hell is this shirt? What's going on with this? I never dreamed to be a spoiled wife. Here I am killing it with a grumpy old husband. What the hell is this?
The first thing that comes to me when I see a grumpy old husband is that point that we men have come to where the wives take offense to just about everything we do as we try to move closer. And then we get labeled as needy, et cetera, et cetera. And before we know it, we're labeled as the grumpy old husband, even though we're not chronologically old. They're offended by things that we do to try and get closer. And so the spoiled part, there's much you can say about that, but I'm just referring to that grumpy old husband part. And it feels like I'm there, even though I'm not that old, I'm older, but yeah, everything I do is like, you're putting too much pressure on me. She says that both literally and figuratively, with and without words. So that's my take on that shirt.
Well
Horrible
said.
shirt.
Very well said. It's how we're construed as the quote grumpy old husband. Yeah, and I'll ask you about that more in a minute. This one kind of made me sick. I just had to put this on here. This one says, sorry, ladies, I'm married to a sexy wife. She's a bit crazy and scares me sometimes, but I'm her king. She is my whole world. And I love her forever and always. Yes, she bought me this shirt. So, okay. So she scares me and she's crazy and she's my whole world. Okay, I'll just move on from that one. And then I love how they just put these onto any old picture of someone with a shirt on. This dude with the sweatshirt of I'm a spoiled wife. I had to put that on here. I just had to share some humor. And Chucky from Child's Play, I looked this up today too. This was released in 1988. This is from part of my childhood. Calm down, babe. I don't want to fight with you. Oh, so you want to fight with another woman? Is that it? I feel like I'm going to be, she's going to come alive in the middle of the night and stab me with a big butcher knife, this Chucky picture. I decided to start us off with a little bit more humor. So on a more serious note, good pressure versus bad pressure. This is an excerpt from an article, psychologyspot.com, entitled Giving Space When You Love, written by a psychologist. And she quotes a couple of poets from the past here. In the paradox In love, the paradox occurs that two beings become one and yet remain two, wrote Eric Fromm, referring to the need to share, but at the same time, maintain individuality in the relationship of a couple. The poet and philosopher Khalil Gibran added, "Love one another, but make not a bond of love. Let it rather be a moving sea between the shores of your souls." Unfortunately, we often experience a possessive love that ends up destroying itself. The desire to own and control the other ends up burning the psychological oxygen that every relationship needs to survive. When love doesn't allow growth, but demands the sacrifice of identity on the altar of us, it's not love, but possession. And it's doomed to failure or to the permanent dissatisfaction of those who remain trapped. When we sacrifice the identity, our own identity, on the altar of us. And Rilke said, "For when a person abandons himself, he is no longer anything. And when two people both give themselves up in order to come close to each other, there is no longer any ground beneath them, and their being together is a continual falling." So certainly there must be an us. There must be a you. There must be a your identity within the us, I should say. And so I can relate to this. So many of us have lost ourselves. That's kind of the number one thing we realize is I'm not doing the hobbies I did when I was younger before we met, when we first met. I'm not fulfilling my own inspiration in the world. When I turn my shoulders, not with her, I feel lost. Maybe I'm just working to put food on the table, working just to pay the bills, and I've lost me. And we've sacrificed ourselves on the altar of us. So some of the biggest mistakes: sticking our head in the sand, turning a blind eye, not speaking up when we know that we should be, putting her on a pedestal. I spoke about this earlier this week on a group call as well, putting on a pedestal. Right? That certainly is bad pressure. Feeling like we're trapped, like we're a puppet to the world, and we don't feel freedom within our own selves, how we spend our day, how we spend our career, how we spend the time connecting in love or otherwise. Do we feel inspired within our own hobbies, within our own activities? And if we don't have this fulfillment in our own lives, are we putting that pressure upon her? Are we putting that upon the relationship? I'm going to open it up now to you guys. Let's talk about this. What is bad pressure? What would you say bad pressure is? Unmute yourself and come on in. Let's have a conversation about this. Yeah, Alan, go for it.
The easiest example is trying to get intimate physically, being rejected, and then moping around. So then when you mope because of that no, and she may have real reasons for it, or in your mind, not real, but still reasons that she doesn't want to have physical intimacy, and you end up moping and acting like a child who didn't get what he wanted, that's bad pressure.
Absolutely. Pushing physical.
Anything needy, anything needy whatsoever. You know, I think, well, Alan described one aspect of it, but I think anything that comes from a position of weakness, childishness, you know, in an overt way.
Yeah. Renner, are you thinking of something specific? An overt way of being needy, childish?
Well, yeah, just being whiny. I mean, we've been talking about sex. Yeah, we all have I think a fundamental need, of course. But if it's just sort of an unbridled need for validation, if our need for sex is a need for validation of our manhood, well, you know, it's taking, it's not, you know, it's not giving, it's not sharing, it's not part of that experience together. I mean, it doesn't have to be this big flowery thing every time, but you know, the I need it or I'll die thing approach, I think, would be an absolute turn off and an absolute torpedo to the relationship.
Yeah, thank you. I want to circle back to that in a few minutes, Ranner. The I need it or I'll die that feeling within ourselves when we don't have inspiration in our own life and we put it all on the relationship. I want to circle back and talk about that. Yeah, thank you. I think Rod was going to come in. Rod, what else is bad pressure? I started to type some of these out here. Pushing intimacy, neediness, desiring validation through her. What else, Rod?
Yeah, I was muting and unmuting. I don't know. Sometime when I'm unmuted, some of the other guys on the other calls just tell me they can hear my fan running on my computer. I don't know if it's, but anyway, I would say bad pressure would be any form of like manipulation, trying to manipulate or an answer, or it was interesting to me. Just something that popped into my head was you'd shown the slide there about putting them on a pedestal, but you may know Swin Masterson. One of his things he's really big on showing us is that to hold your spouse in unconditional high regard. So I was kind of torn between those two. It's not that you want to put them on a pedestal, but you still want to hold them in unconditional high regard and give them the benefit of the doubt and just be, I'm trying not to be needy or put bad pressure on by just leaving her alone as much as possible. And, till she works through this, whatever she's working through.
Yeah, I'm typing unconditional high regard on the good pressure list, Rod. So what does that mean to you, unconditional high regard?
Unconditional high regard to me just starts out with not living inside my own head. I found myself what I've really been improving on the last 3 or 4 weeks is not starting out with a bad story, telling myself a bad story about something. Next thing you know, I got that bad story leads to a bad thought and all that stuff, to where you're all of a sudden you're telling yourself a story and you're all worked up over something that may or may not, and usually it isn't true, but you just so just to always assume the best, always, rather than look at the situation with anger, look at it with empathy. Rather than look at her struggles and get angry that she's not available to me right now, physically or emotionally, look at it that, you know what, she's working through some things right now. And while she works through that, I'll take this opportunity to work through, because I certainly got things I need to work through and be a better partner in this relationship. I don't want to say, of course, that includes being a better husband, which that's not my main goal. It's being a better husband. It's being a better father, but ultimately it's just being a better person, a better man. So regardless of where I'm at with my relationship with my kids or my son-in-law or my daughter-in-law or my grandkids or my wife, I'm just showing up every day. And this is really starting to work in me. Different books I'm reading through the course and different things I'm learning is to become whole within yourself. So you're not needy. Everyone's goal is to be in life is to be happy. I think everyone wants to be happy, at least. And if I'm a 57-year-old white man with a decent job and I'm healthy and strong, and I struggle to be happy every day. And there's people that struggle with so much more than I do, with sickness and illness and disease and poverty and everything else. And so if I'm struggling to be happy, why would I depend on someone else to suppose that they're supposed to go somewhere and get completely filled with happiness? No, by the way, while you're there, pick up an extra bucket of happiness for me and bring it back so that you can make me happy too, because I can't be happy on my own. So to me, that to stop putting pressure on and being needy would be to work on myself and get myself to where I don't need, not in a bad way, but I don't need anyone else to make me happy. I can be happy and complete and fulfilled. I can't believe how comfortable I've gotten being alone and just sitting reading a book alone, or spending the evening alone, just doing whatever. Because that's been my reality for the last several months. So thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, Rod, fantastic. Well, let me ask you about that. By the way, if you know where I can go buy a bucket of happiness, let me know. Send that to me in the chat where I can go where I could go.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I finally realized. I thought she knew the place, and I begged her for years to go get me some happiness, but she was never able to. And so I was angry about that. Since I was the victim, she had to be the villain then. So, but I'm
That's
learning
right.
that I guess that well doesn't exist. That well of happiness that somebody can go fill up your bucket for you. You got to go find it and fill it up yourself.
Yeah, well said. So, Rod, let me ask, how did you come to this existential understanding of life, meaning filling yourself up? It's not her job to do that for me. That my having gratitude, those practices of gratitude to burst through the black clouds of fear and sadness. And how did you get to that point? I'm thinking of, as you know, all of us men come to this work through pain. Every one of us, the doorway of pain opens us to this deeper understanding. But for you, day to day, when your wife is standing in front of you or she's mad and pointing, how do you come back to a grounding of what you've said?
Well, I do a tremendous amount of reading. But I tend to have to read everything 2 or 3 times to understand it. I watch a ton of YouTube videos. And I know that sounds like a very superficial answer, but I guess what I'm really saying is I've been doing a lot of deep thought. I've been journaling through the Oak Journal, really, and then I go back and reread and see where I was, 3 weeks ago as compared to where I am today emotionally and how I'm looking at things. What stories I told myself 3 weeks ago that turned out to be total bullshit, and what stories am I telling myself today that I'm going to look back 3 weeks from now and say they're total bullshit? Well, and I just realized they're total bullshit right now instead of living them out. But I think as far as the bucket of happiness, it may have been. I'm pretty sure it was a email that Steve. I see Steve Horsman's on here that Steve sent out talking about your wife's not responsible to go fill up your happiness for you. But so that's how I've got that conclusion, just by a lot of soul searching and then like I say, I realizing also that my wife has her own things she's working through, and I'm very grateful that after a lot of many years of pushing that, not by anything I did ultimately, but she's finally decided to go work on some of her issues, and while she's doing that, I look at her when I see her, and if she's angry or she's not as kind to me as I'd like her to be, I just look at like, you know what, she's just like me. Maybe she had a bad day. Maybe she's struggling with something. And there's a good chance it's worse than what I'm struggling with. So instead of being angry and instead of looking at myself like a victim, oh, geez, poor Rod isn't getting treated nice enough today. She didn't smile at me enough. She wasn't kind enough to me. I look at it because if I'm the victim, obviously somebody has to be a villain. And you know who that would be. So I look at it like, rather than make myself the victim and her the villain, well, how about if I just show her love and empathy and just give her space and leave her alone and let her give her time to work through her things.
Yeah, beautiful.
I guess I
Incredibly
came to
well
it.
said. I absolutely agree with everything that you're saying. I feel like asking the question, what's the most difficult in the spot situation for you when it's hard for you to have this frame of mind to her, to give her space and benefit of the doubt? And what's the most difficult situation for you?
Um, just the avoidance, just the fact that we spend so little time, probably less than a half hour a day we spend together anyway, and just the avoidance that's. But and I have a daughter. We have 3 sons and 1 daughter. My wife and my daughter are extremely close, and my daughter just had her second baby this past summer. But unfortunately, her and her husband moved. They live 15 minutes from us, and they moved. They're a little over 4 hours away now. So my wife spends a lot of time. She'll leave work on a Friday and head straight to my daughter's and do that a couple times a month. For the weekend, and just a constant avoidance, because I'm getting more and more comfortable spending time alone when I have to, but I'm also gaining a lot of new friends and making friends. Unfortunately, golf season's over here in Pittsburgh, so or pretty much over. But I have a trip planned at the end of April with 19 other guys. We're going down to Myrtle Beach for a golf, for 4 days of golf and fun. And I'm doing that too. I'm really working hard on relationships. And tonight, I was so excited to get on this call today, because tonight at 4 o'clock we have a wedding to go to, and that we're going to go together, and that'll be the first thing that we've attended, the first event, first dinner, first anything we've attended together in 7 or 8 months.
Oh, wow.
I really want to be focused tonight on good pressure and just enjoying the evening.
Yeah, very well said. I appreciate you being here, Rod. I want to ask anyone else if what Rod is saying really connects with you. And maybe I have a feeling that some guys would love to be you, Rod, and meaning this perspective on yourself, the patience that you have, and how to get there. Who else wants to have Rod's mindset right now? Looking in the chat too, bad pressure is trying to connect from fear, not love. Yeah, Steve Forsman's in here too. Choosing compassion over resentment. Conscious empathy. I'm okay, she's okay, we'll be okay. So Rod, one thing I want to put on the table, and when I ask about daily, and make sure my screen's where I want it to be. When I ask about how you get to that spot, how you get to a spot where you have compassion and empathy and the self-work, you said you'd done a lot of introspection, a lot of reflection. One thing I teach men in my one-on-one coaching and in my private groups as well is the morning kingly plan. And I'm not going to go through all this right now. You could take a screenshot of this. You could reach out to me and ask me to send you this PDF if you like. And I can dig more into this another time, but let's at the very least talk about what this is. So I don't know about you, but I spend a good 10, 15 minutes on the toilet most mornings on my throne. I don't know if you go to the bathroom faster than that, good for you, but it gives me a good 10, 15 minutes to journal or read something. And the first 3 steps here, number 1, 2, 3, is what's something I appreciate in my life. Number 2 is I read something inspirational to me for maybe 5 minutes. I open up a Kindle on my phone or a book that's in my bathroom and I read something inspirational. And then I either journal or speak out loud. What do I know to be true? What do I know to be true about myself? And these steps, and I'll talk more about the others another time, or if you want to ask me about them, these steps of your morning kingly plan help bring you back into centeredness within yourself, and not this default, how am I going to be fed emotionally today? I don't know if anyone else can relate, but when I wake up first thing in the morning or when I put my head on the pillow, those are usually the moments in my day that I have the most difficult monkey mind stuff come up. Yeah. So who's facing a challenge? I want to talk with you. So unmute yourself, come in. Maybe you wish you had Rod-centeredness. Who's facing a challenge right now? Who has a question about good pressure versus bad pressure? Come on in.
Hey, Jeff. How's it going, man?
Hey, Chris. Yeah, good to see you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, good to be on here with everyone. Hearing Rod's story really hits home big time, especially right now. And I also live in Pittsburgh, by the way, Rod. So if you ever want to meet up and talk through things, I'm here. Yeah, so specifically for me right now, just a few days ago, my wife came home, had a really bad day, and she actually mentioned how she was in a state where she felt like she had a lot of pressure to kind of pander to everyone else's schedule during the Christmas holiday. And in the moment, I kind of responded in a way that was not very empathetic. And that kind of sent her over the edge, if you will. And that night, she expressed how she just feels super disconnected, how she is shut down in the relationship, and kind of looking forward at like what that would look like if we were two in the relationship. And then today it's interesting because we have a Christmas party for my work that we have had a plan to go to together for about a month now. And so it was 2 days ago that went down. And yesterday when I saw her, she was in a better state of mind, but still clearly like not facing me in the relationship, not even thinking about it at this point. So I guess, my challenge, or like, just expressing what I'm going through right now, would also be just how to best get grounded and have the best possible evening for myself and for her tonight, given the situation.
Yeah, thanks for asking. So what's your fear about this evening? What are you concerned about?
I think my concern is that she's still in such an emotional place that spending that much time with me will feel more like pressure to be a certain way, even though my intention and the way that I want to show up is not letting her feel like that, or not making her feel like she needs to be in any certain way. But just given the timing and the situation, I'm just afraid that she's going to feel like she has to be a certain way, and then she's going to kind of shut off to even enjoying the evening or even trying to, and that would push her further into this kind of wanting to move things along in the other direction.
Yeah, so say more about feeling pressure to be a certain way. Is this something the two of you have run up against many times before?
Maybe not specifically that, but it's kind of the way that I feel she's thinking about it. For me, one thing that I've done a ton of and realized that it's, at least at times, very nice guy-esque, is just always being able to smooth over any type of issue, and like kind of not necessarily turning a blind eye to it, but just being positive no matter what. And I think that frustrates her. So
Yeah.
It's something that she kind of mentioned in that conversation a few days ago, how she's frustrated that I've been going along acting like things are good between us, but in actuality she doesn't feel that way at all. And that she's felt like that many times in the past, where, for example, what she said the other day, where she was having a bad day and then mentioned how she felt like she's prioritizing everyone else, and then me responding in a non-empathetic way, as an example.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm going to jump into a tool here in a second that I was going to show on this call anyway, Chris. And you may have seen this. If y'all haven't seen this, the Stoic triangle, the one side of virtue is, what are our values, our boundaries? Who do I want to be? The desires I have as a man. What can I control and what can I not control? And the third side is responsibility, taking responsibility for our action within these ways. And I'll tell you a quick tool about this here in a second, Chris. But so let me ask, and I'm fishing a little bit here. So do you feel that in the past you've kind of numbed your own emotions and just to appease or assuage the situation, where she maybe hasn't trusted this is really you, you're just kind of making peace and not really speaking up for what you believe, or just trying to smooth things over? Am I catching that correctly?
Spot on, I would say. Yeah, and I didn't even realize it was one of those. It's a classic example of a blind spot, just because it just felt normal to me. And I think that that's something that I learned growing up, because we all have childhood trauma, and this is just an example of that kind of being manifested in how I've interacted and not been empathetic, or not embraced my own emotion, and actually looked at it for what it is and just ignored it and just pushed it down, and I'll be okay, like just forget about it.
Yeah, I can understand. I can relate too. And it's the happy wife, happy life, like was said earlier on. Or if she's ever upset, that's not a good thing. I mean, back to the spoiled wife t-shirt that I showed at the beginning. What does spoiled wife mean? Spoiled wife means that she gets everything that she wants, that she's always happy, right? So this is what we've thought that our job was. So I'm going to show this again. And so you can do this. By the way, Rod could do this now or right after the call, or Chris, you could do this, or any of us could do this. So virtue, control, and responsibility, right? I'll use a V for virtue, a C for control, and an R for responsibility. And if you just grab your journal and put 3 columns on a piece of paper or within your journal, you've got virtue, control, and responsibility. So what can I control and what can I not control? So let's do this real fast, Chris. The middle column of control. So as far as, what was it again? A dinner later today when you get together with your wife? Yeah.
Yeah, we have a Christmas party, and
Ah,
then after that, we're supposed to go to her friend's house for another kind of Christmas party. So it's kind of an evening of Christmas party jumping.
got you. So what can you control and what can you not control within all those situations, the Christmas parties?
I can control my own perspective on how I'm going to enjoy the evening and the people around me, including my wife, whether she's up for it or not. I can control something that we were talking about earlier, the high regard that I have for her, despite what she's been saying to me and how things have been. And I can't control how she shows up, despite how I show up. And I can't control her enjoying her evening any more than I can enjoy mine. And I would say those are the main things that come to mind right now.
Yeah, I'm writing this down. So I'm like literally doing what I'm suggesting that you guys do, right? So I can control my own perspective, having high regard for her. I can't control how she shows up or if she enjoys herself. Yeah. Okay. So virtue, the column of virtue means what are my values? What are my nuts? Who am I as a man? So what another way of saying this is, what's the most important thing to you about this evening, about the Christmas parties? What do you value? What's the most important thing?
I think the most important thing for me is, it's hard to sum up as like one single thing, but I'd say if I was doing my best, it would be just showing up as the man that I want to be while also embracing the evening in the moment, being present, and just not thinking about anything but that, and just having fun to the best of my ability.
Yeah, okay. And so what's showing up to be the man you want to be? Having fun? I mean, the things I could guess, but where do you feel you might get tripped up with showing up as the man that you want to be?
I think where I could get tripped up is just focusing too much on the state of the relationship right now and feeling like I need to try to be perfect around her.
Yeah, so back over in what you can't control is the state of the relationship right now. Okay, and so since you can't control that, what are you concerned about that? What's going to happen then? What's the fear say?
The fear says that the timing of all this and the time spent together will just kind of push her in the direction of like, this still doesn't feel normal. Like I want to take action on ending things sooner.
Okay. And you can't control whether she feels that way or not, of course, right? But do you find that, so of your value, of your virtue, part of this is boundaries, hills I'm willing to die on. That's what this entire side of the Stoic triangle is. That's entitled virtue here. Knowing what's most important to me, knowing the hills I'm willing to die on. Yeah. So with that in mind, do you feel that something different should be done? Like, do you have a fear? Do you have it? Is there actually a actionable need here, or is this just fear of being around her and then that motivating such and such and this whole domino happening? Is there something that should be changed about this evening?
I think it's more the fear than anything else. Like she's still open to going. She's not said that she doesn't want to go. And, it's like, I don't think there's anything specific that I could do that would change how the evening goes with regards to how things go between us.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So if there's a safety issue, our child is running into the street. By the way, I see that you're being an awesome dad all along the way. Good for you, man. Multitasking. Like if our kiddo is running into the street, we just grab their arm and pull them out of the street. If there's a safety issue, we take action, whatever we have to do. But it doesn't sound like anything's in violation of your integrity or your nuts that's going on this evening. It's a fear that you're having. Yeah. Beautiful. So I was writing all these things down as I'm encouraging you to do with this practice, right? So Chris, within responsibility, So what could you do to take responsibility for yourself that maybe you're not doing? Or what do you want to make sure that you do action-wise to take responsibility to keep your frame of mind at best, the best that you possibly could during this evening?
I think the main thing and what I've realized through this work is that kind of like what you were talking about earlier with Rod, like how do you find your grounding? And for me, it's like I know the answer, but it's actively talking to myself and telling myself these things that you've been teaching us and that I've learned through this whole process, just consistently as hell. Like, I think that's the hardest part. It's like, it's not that I don't know the perspective to have or the, you know, the thoughts to embrace. It's that the emotion of the moment tends to take me out of that. So I think, you know, for me, the responsibility is just something that you've taught in the Kingly Path is resetting as you go into new environments. And I think that that's something that I can focus on, is just before she even gets home, just kind of resetting mentally and taking a minute to breathe and, you know, think about what we're talking about here and think about the values that I have and being present for the evening. And I think that alone will at least open the door for, you know, no shitstorms, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah, very well said. I'm glad that you mentioned that. So Chris is referring to my private membership, the Kingly Life Path, and the resetting yourself relates to high regard, as we were talking about earlier as well. And so the short version, which I teach much more about this, of course, the short version is every time I walk into a new room, certainly a room where my woman is, that I reset myself. I breathe into my belly. I breathe down deep into my belly. I put my shoulders up, right? I reset, I relax my face. So as I walk, and this is something that becomes more and more automatic. And maybe you live in this relaxed state with deep breath and all the time. Good for you. I don't, if you can do that, that's fantastic. I'm human, and so I have to reset myself at times. And it's this practice of every time I walk into a room, especially with my woman, or I walk in from work and I drive into my garage, I'm about to walk in through the laundry room. I sit, where are my shoulders? Breathe deep into my belly. Is my face relaxed? And do I have gratitude in this present moment? And Chris is saying he takes responsibility. He's going to take responsibility for that, right? So virtue, what can I control? And where am I taking responsibility? How am I preparing myself? Or what acts am I doing in the moment? Like resetting when I walk through a doorway, my breath, my posture, relaxing my face, having gratitude for this present moment of my life. Whatever small moment, whatever small thing that is, the air in my lungs, the sun on my face, the opportunity to see my children. Good stuff. I appreciate it. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, Rod had asked how I define
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, man. How do I define eudaimonia? And it's the path, it's the journey to a joyous life. That's what eudaimonia is. And joyous life to me is filled with sense of freedom and love. And freedom is more of a masculine pole, and love is more of the feminine pole. And that's a topic for another time, how to maintain more masculine, feminine polarity, why we as men want to feel sense of freedom, freedom within career, freedom within our time, freedom within our relationships, right? And the feminine part of all of us, but especially women, want to feel filled through love and blooming love in that present moment. And so a joyous life has freedom and it has love. And that's what I teach men how to bring into your life, into your relationship, into the space between the two of you. It's good stuff. Yeah, we've got about 45 more minutes. One thing that I'm always asked is for links. So I'm going to put some links into the chat right now, and I'll show you the screen. You grab the right slide in my keynote here. There we go. I have free resources on my website. One of my most popular is The Staircase of Intimacy. So in the middle there, free 45-minute audiobook, greatmenmovemountains.com/free audiobook. If you want to reach out, of course, for the Good Guys to Great Men coaches. It's the first link there, and I just put this into the chat. If you want to reach out to me directly, greatmenmovemountains.com/contact, or there's my email address, and I've got a private Facebook group as well with, I think we hit 330 men the other day. So reach out to me. If you have any questions about any of this, certainly. So let's take some more time to dive into you individually. So gentlemen that are here live, I honor that you guys came in, and there's a bunch of you in here right now. So Henry come in, Harry, Ben, David, George, Stacy. George, did you want to come in? You're unmuted.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
go for
figured
it.
if you asked for who's next.
Yeah, go
So
for it.
I came to a great realization that is working toward grounding me better. And that is, I got all the answers, but I don't like the answers.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us come to a lot of realizations as we do the work to understand her more and to understand our role in the show. And we're not getting the answers we want, and we act childish. It's like, I didn't get my cookie, so I'm all pissed off, and I'm trying really hard not to do that. I guess it's evolving. I guess it's coping. I'm in a separation. She came home for the kids for Christmas and would have liked to have caught up today, but she's busy and I'm busy, and I'm going away for a 5-day trip, and we'll do it when we get back. And if we don't do it, I got to be okay with that. And I think I am okay with that. Found myself doing something really stupid that I thought I'd share with the guys that may help them prevent going down the same path. Is the relationship with the kids has gotten much better. And we've had a couple of successful guys trips and experiences. And I'm kind of like the Cookie Monster. It's never enough. And I found myself kind of selfishly wanting to improve relationships with my oldest, and asked him if he wanted to go on a trip with me this week. And he said yes. And then we got into a disagreement about some things the other night. And he said, hey, have fun in Arizona yourself. And it took me a while to realize that I'm okay with that. I really am. I mean, probably would have devastated me with everything that's going on some time ago. But I'm at a place now where, like I said in the chat, if the answer's no, any excuse will do. And I heard one of the guys talking before about his wife being always busy and preoccupied. They definitely find things to fill their day. And they read a lot of self-help books themselves, like, how to disconnect and how to not be codependent. And, don't think for a minute that in many instances, even if it doesn't seem like it, they're working on themselves too, and they're coming to their own conclusions. Everybody's got to be an individual, and everybody's got to be accepting. And I hear so many guys, I think one a few minutes ago was talking about, when do I just kind of end it? And I think that's a very individual question. I saw that post on your Facebook page about ending it, and I think it's like, how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll? It's a very individual decision that's got to be made on your nuts and your priorities. And I don't know, I just wanted to share that because it's probably a lot to unpack, but maybe a few nuggets that might help people, because I think it's helping me to kind of come to some realizations about my motivations and my lack of being discerning sometimes. Wish it would have hit me long ago, but it's never too late, I guess.
Yeah, George, thank you for speaking up. I always love to see you when you come on. So when you realized that you were the Cookie Monster and it was never enough, how do you want to handle that differently ongoing? What do you want to shift or practice, as we were talking about virtue, control, responsibility, right? What do you want to take responsibility for that you maybe haven't within your own day-to-day practice or week-to-week practice?
Well, this may fly in the face of what some of the coaches might say, but I think that I've allowed myself to be a practitioner of false humility. And, you know, when the kid said, hey, I'm not going on the trip to the West Coast with you, that's that. Enjoy yourself. There's a part of me that wants to say, hey, what I just said to you in the group today, and see if I can help smooth it over and let him know that when I'm trying to be corrective, I'm trying to do it in his best interest. And then there's this other part of me that just says, let it go, dude. Go on your trip, lose golf balls right and left, have a great time. And when you come back, just be cheerful over the holidays. Just find your own joy, find your own inner peace, do things that make you happy. And when you're in the room with people, try to not bring a dark cloud because you're not 100% happy in your relationships with people. I guess it took a long time for the marriage to go sour. And if it's ever to reemerge, it could take an equal amount of time. So I don't know. I just want to be a more patient person and maybe try to not be as selfish as I've previously been.
Yeah, thank you. Patient, not so let me show you this picture here. I don't know if you can see this right now, George, but it's the three wise monkeys, the see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. Can you see that? Yeah.
Yep.
So where is the go ahead.
I wanted to share that sparked something, believe it or not. My son was critical of my wife for not staying in contact with him as much as he'd like. He's 24. And I said to him, you know, I don't really want to engage in conversation criticizing your mother. I hold her in high regard and she's working through a lot of her own shit. And it's my experience that when people are critical of others, they tend to be critical of the person they're talking to in other conversations. And I just don't want to live that life. I'm not trying to say that I become virtuous overnight, but if it's something I can fix for you, I'll fix it. But if it's something that's out of my control, you got to take it up with her. And I thought that was very empowering, by the way, about, you know, when I see the monkeys and I think about hear no evil, speak no evil, or at least that's what came to mind when I saw that image.
Yeah, very well said. So living by your values, living as the man that you
Right.
want to be to your nuts. Absolutely. So that's fantastic. Thank you. Yes. And I'm glad that sparked something. If I may, I was going to ask for you. So let's say you're on this trip. You're losing golf balls left and right because you're that's your focus. That's what you're out there to do, is have fun. What would be the fear when you come back? So what would you be afraid to see when you come back? What would you be afraid to hear? What would you be afraid might come out of your mouth that you don't want to happen? What's the fear there about, okay, just spending this time on my own?
Yeah, what a fantastic question. During the dynamic of the marriage getting to the point where it got to bad, I think the wife and the kids grew close together because dad was kind of out on an island. And I've made the comment that you can feel alone even in a crowded room. And, you know, I guess there's a little anxiety that I'm gone for 5 days and everybody is going to get ready for the holidays and have a few laughs, have a few jokes, throw a few darts on the wall, literally darts or billiards or whatever. And when I come back, there'll be a perception like, man, we had so much fun while he was gone. And now he's back and he's so needy. And I don't want to be that guy anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's heavy. I know that's heavy, but
I
I
was about
guarantee
to
you
say
there's other
that's,
people on the phone.
yeah, I was about to say that's real and that's painful. And I appreciate you saying that. I mean, that's a huge fear. So what would you do? Let's play this out for a minute. What would you do if they came home and they rolled their eyes and they said, oh, couldn't you just be gone longer? We so enjoyed time without you here. What if that happened?
Mm-hmm. I think part of me would like to say, I understand I haven't been bringing my best self. I'm a work in progress, and when you shave in the mirror or put your makeup on, you might find you are too. And that's not me judging you, but that's me judging me and judging the situation. And all I can do is tell you I'm working on bringing a better me to what we're doing, and hope we get to do something. What the hell else can you really say, if there's anything to be said?
Yeah, George, thanks
It's,
for diving into this. I asked you a hard question. And so what you just said there, I would imagine is something you've probably written in your journal more than one time. You've probably said this out loud to yourself. Well, like me, you're on a walk out in nature, or you're out on a hike and you're speaking this to the clouds like I do. I'm sure you've said that to yourself. Often I find, and you and I could talk about this more, and we can certainly talk about this on another call, guys, if you like, or if you have a specific question, anyone on this. Often I find when we're challenged, it's best to not defend ourselves in any way. It's best to not explain ourselves in any way. In fact, I've even said the words, "That's fair," when it was like, I felt like a knife was in my stomach. You forgot to take out the trash. You don't care about me. I don't want black olives on my pizza, and you didn't think about me and how dismissive you are. And while I had this knife in my stomach thinking how much I've done for my family, or how much I think about my son, to shove the black olives up your ass, like how much sort of throw the pizza across the room. Often I find it really serves a situation to sometimes just say, hey, that's fair. And if that's true, and to not defend myself. And then, go away, lick my wounds, feel gratitude for the moment, maybe email the men or post on the forum if it's something that I find serious, or just sleep on it for 24 hours. Right? Because otherwise, my son is almost 19 now, George. I know everyone has kids at different ages or don't have kids, but anytime I try to explain the moral of the story, or like deflect in any way, it doesn't go well. He basically just calls me on my bullshit, or it doesn't.
No, and I also, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, go ahead. I can hear you.
I lose you? I may have lost you.
I got you. Can you hear me, George?
Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you. You're still there. Can you hear me, George?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna add to that about your 19-year-old son, and mine are 21 and soon to be 24. They say they don't want you to solve their problems, yet they seek counsel. And I find there's a lot of self-fulfilling stuff. In other words, if they're looking to get from point A to point B and you help guide them and everything, they reject the hell out of that GPS because they didn't figure it out themselves. So you just have to be reliable and minimalist in nature, and let them drag it out of you, as opposed to being so trying to fix everything, which I know you and Steve and others have covered ad nauseum, but it's a good reminder.
Yeah, that's well said. I appreciate it, George. So much of course, parenting is modeling, and so much of being a deep, masculine, grounded man is not trying to change other people directly, allowing them to have their own set of values. That was a big thing I had to learn, is being upset that she has a different set of values than I do is asinine, right? Yeah.
I will tell you, when you're codependent and you're in a 20, in my case, 28-year relationship, and you work under this false assumption that you have the same values, and then you realize, no, she was just conforming and you were just conforming, and neither of you have been happy about it. It's liberating. in many ways.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here, George. I appreciate it.
Sure.
I'm gonna jump back to this list here. Thanks, George. It's awesome to see you. So bad pressure. Certainly we've been talking, and I wasn't typing this whole time, but we've got pushing intimacy, neediness, desiring her to validate you, wanting external validation, manipulation. What else should we add to this list? Good pressure, unconditional high regard, feeling whole within yourself, having time in your day and your week for deep thought. And I would say that you plan this. Could be 5 minutes a day, but something that you spend that time on. Daily self-work. I showed you the morning kingly plan. What else should we add to this list? And if you have something that, if you have a situation you want to talk about, come on in. I'll share another one from the forum here in about 30 seconds. If no one else wants to come in, but you're here live, so I want to honor you. What's your spot? What's your question about pressure? Good pressure, bad pressure, bad pressure. Unmute yourself. Come on in.
I think it's pressure you put on yourself in a lot of different aspects. I'm coming more to the realization that it's about wanting a deep emotional connection with somebody. I think we all strive that, we initially, without the work, tend to seek that external validation from your partner and from anybody, and that is driven to a degree by the reality that you want to be significant. You want, in a sense, to validate yourself. You don't want your life here to be, oh, well, who was he? He didn't have an impact on his job or his family or his whatever. And ultimately, you've got to get solid within yourself. It gets back to George's thing. You don't push onto anybody else. You let them come to you, and they may be attracted by how grounded you are once you've done the work. Well, once you realize, once you start learning a little bit more. And it's that well, I don't know, you can call it the little boy that wants to be seen, to be heard, you know, look mummy, look teacher, look boss, look what I'm doing. You know, I need to be, and internally, you know, to justify yourself, and I suppose in a way we confuse it with the you know, the need to validate yourself by a bigger car, a bigger boat, a bigger house, bigger airplane. Excuse me. More money than Jeff Bezos. I think I'm a little stretched for me, but anyway, all that sort of stuff. Blokes like to measure. Why is that? Because we don't have battles to fight, I think, maybe, I don't know.
That's really interesting. So let me ask you about that first of all. Love you being here, Patrick. Fantastic. Boils down to significance, you know, the feeling of significance. And it seems as though many of us have tried to feel that through our relationship because we thought that's what we had to do. We thought that that was the best thing, is to put our stake in the sand around family and income and safety. But it's almost as though we're using her or using them to feel significance through, if we don't have our own battle to fight. Yeah, Patrick. So how would you, let's say that you found this work decades ago. Would you have done anything differently? How would you have shifted your feeling of significance or the battle that you fight in the world within your own self?
Decades ago, I would have done things a hell of a lot different. I wouldn't have worked so hard. Provisioning and providing. Well, you always provision and provide, but I strove to get ahead in my job and went into management and shit like that. And but you need to see it from the other perspective. I'm older, 70, and come from maybe the tradition. Well, maybe a generation ahead of a few people where, you know, you went out to work and the wife looked after the home, and you didn't recognize the need for her to be seen and heard. A lot of it comes down to not, I suppose, feeling appreciated. You get locked into external versions of what your job is to be. And of course, the world shifted and all the rest of that, you know, and away from the traditional roles. But it comes down to, in a way, that it's teamwork. And teamwork isn't who's right, it's what is right. It's a joint effort to make things happen. And, you know, it's stepping in when you need to without being asked, maybe. And you all go through, I suppose, the years where you're raising kids and it's just get up, go to work, come home, go to bed, change nappies, feed kids, run kids around, yada, yada, yada. And you forget the other person in the relationship. And they're struggling as well, but they don't realise it. They're just, everybody's tied up in the moment. And you get tied up in the moment, and that extends to years in a way, and you both lose yourself. Selves. Does that help you? Keep asking me questions.
Yeah, well, I'm pausing and feeling into what you said, and also saw what Rod just put into the chat here. The best time to plant a tree was 25 years ago. The second best time to plant is today. Is there, I mean, Patrick, you and I know each other fairly well. And yes, I agree with everything you said. And we find ourselves in the moment, and it's about teamwork. It's about shared vision. But I'm curious, right? So let's say you came to this work 40 years ago. It was that version of you. Do you feel you would have even been ready? Do you think that you would have made any kind of shift if Patrick from today walked through a time machine and spoke to you 40 years ago? Or do you think that you needed to feel this gateway of pain to come to this work? What do you think about that?
It's a multi-layered bloody question, you bugger. 40 years ago would have made me 30. At that stage, I was striving and all the rest of that, but I was also reading a lot, and gaining knowledge and moving ahead. So I think I would have drunk the bucket dry, and I think I was open to it then, and because the way I've advanced in my life is by seeking knowledge. I come from a very poor background, and didn't go to university or anything like that. I got the knowledge through amount of reading. My reading shifted from reading novels to reading management books, blah blah blah, self-help books, all etc. And actually, it's a good point. You've just triggered a memory. My thinking shifted when I read one book, and that was one of the Tony Robbins things, The Power Within, and that made me look at life differently, and deeper. And when my son was going at about that age, what age was he? He was about 25. And he'd left New Zealand to go to Australia and work on stuff, and it didn't go well. And I told him about this book, and I said, and he got the course, and he actually used to listen to it on CDs, remember those, on the way to work. And the next thing, at what age was he? About 25, he came home and stayed here and went to university for 2 years and did and got a double degree in 2 years instead of 3, and that put him on a different path. So yeah, I think I basically, like what you've said, Jeff, that knowledge changed my life. So yeah, I would have drunk that bucket dry.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're here now. And I love how you speak with us, connect with us, tell stories. And I see men taking notes all along as we speak here, guys. And Patrick, I appreciate it. Thanks for being here.
Well, the other side of it, Jeff, at 70, you're never too old to learn.
Yeah, I appreciate that about you. Absolutely. And if y'all don't know Patrick, we've known each other almost 3 years since we began the C Note show. And he's in the Kingly Life Path, my private group as well. And Patrick takes calls with guys all around the world as well. And I appreciate that about you, Patrick. Yeah. Just connecting with guys, like as far as talking and not feeling alone, and right.
Yeah, well, I'm in a busy weekend with calls from all over the world, Spain, England. And in some ways, it's fortunate it's raining here because I put the phone down and then somebody else rings me and I go, oh, God. And then we sit and talk, or we don't sit and talk. Believe it or not, Jeff, I've actually strapped the cell phone in a Velcro thing that I can strap to my arm so I can move around and talk.
High tech, Patrick. High tech, buddy. We got to get you some Bluetooth. Do you have Bluetooth headphones yet?
I've got no, I've got Bluetooth hearing aids.
Seriously?
But I put the phone in a Velcro thing that I got out of China and on my arm, and it's Bluetoothed, and I walk around cleaning the house or doing something and talking. So I'm become a blonde. I'm multitasking.
Yeah. You're high tech, man. I can't compete with that. High tech. Thanks, Patrick. I appreciate it.
Well, I'd love to see you doing a bit of housework there, Jeff.
Oh, I certainly do the housework. I'm just not as plugged in as you, it sounds like, Patrick. Thanks, buddy. I'll press pause on you. Appreciate it. I'm gonna read a post from the forum, and I want men to come in. If you are here right now and you're in a painful spot or you're confused by something around pressure, especially because that's our topic today, come on in. This is a post. Man is sharing some of his new perspective. Funny thing about all the lessons we learn about what got us into a mess in our marriage is that it's right there in front of us. I love my 2 cats, but when it comes to feeding time, they do really obnoxious things. One of them will get really affectionate, rubbing up against my leg and jumping on the counter to brush up against my face and hands. Going through my mind is, I don't want this right now. You're only doing this to get something from me. Quit pestering me. Ah, that's how my wife felt with me pestering her for sex. My older son constantly blurts his way in while I'm talking. You have to wait until I finish speaking so you can understand what I'm saying. Shit, I do that with my wife while she's talking. Or when both of my boys are going nuts, screaming at each other, asking for attention every 2 seconds, while I'm trying to listen to an audiobook while cooking or cleaning with a tight deadline before getting to work. All I want to do is escape and find quiet space. That's like her wanting space. I give my boys attention as much as I can with all the other things I do for myself, the house, the job. However, sometimes they're begging for attention, and I either can't, or on some occasions, I'm not in the headspace. That's tough because I want to give them the attention and love that they're asking for, but I can't meet that need 100%, and it feels bad. Apply that to her, but to a grown-ass man. The neediness can wear on you. Probably applies in our marriage as well. How does this hit you? We've got about 15 minutes left on this call today. Who has a spot they want to either ask me or just share with the men? Come on in, unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, Tom, go for it. Good to see you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I guess not to give a lot of background, but probably since about August, we're still living under the same roof, but she gave me the line, I need space. And initially, I was kind of pushing, and she's still there, but she's just not talking to me. She has, she's basically living in the guest room. We've been married for 27 years. There's been kind of ups and downs, kind of a cycle. And I'm not sure exactly what did it in this time. In the past, she has, I'd give a few days or maybe even a couple weeks, for things to calm down. And here I thought everything was better. It wasn't, so, she's mentioned a couple of times, we've talked with some other people, at least one other person together about it, and kind of rehashing all the stuff in the past. And I'm accepting and acknowledging my part. And I think in terms of the bad pressure, good pressure, I can't help but think that a lot of it is perception. How we take it or don't take it. And in terms of whether it's good or bad, maybe that's very subjective in the sense of how we're receiving it. It seems like one of the things that we're talking about a great deal is how do we be men? And just recently, to give you an example of where I am, there was, I put the Christmas tree up for the first time this year. Usually my wife did that, and we have 2 boys, and they would work on that. And I was kind of grumpy and kind of depressed, I think, especially around the holidays, because I wasn't receiving that affirmation, that acceptance from her. I think I was trying to please her. She was on the pedestal, but I didn't really think about myself, or maybe I was thinking too much about myself in the wrong way. In terms of, and she said this, I'm not responsible for your happiness, kind of thing. But, she put up a set of lights above some windows, and I've been having trouble sleeping at night. I just started taking some melatonin, just to try to get a 6-7 hour night sleep, because before it was like maybe 3 hours, I'd wake up, I couldn't go back to sleep and everything. I turned the lights on this morning, the Christmas tree lights, because I got up, I think it was just around 5 or so. But anyway, it was still dark. She came out, she turned the light off and kind of did her stuff and then went back to her room. And I was kind of laughing about it, because it's a silly thing. Why should I get worked up if she just turns the lights off? That's kind of her business. But just trying to, we're still not talking. I have a son, our oldest son lives in California. He's coming back tonight. And of course, we haven't had sex for, I don't know, at least since September, if not, and before, it was always a chore for her. But and she has used the divorce word and separation. And it's really hard to be happy around her just because of all the emotion that's there. But I'm finding myself, and thank you, to Steve and the other guys. Somehow I found I found the website and receiving the emails. I have a one-on-one, this coming week, which I'm kind of excited about. But just, I think starting to connect with my feelings and emotions, because I've been really bad at expressing it, because I don't think I really knew how, and to acknowledge that these emotions that I have are real and you can't just repress them. And that's kind of what I've been doing.
Yeah.
And acknowledging the emotions and just say, they don't control me. And that's one of the things I'm working through. So I'm finding myself, I guess I'm trying to rediscover myself and who I am. And even, kind of getting into some, okay, so that's interesting. I've never really looked into that. Why don't I look into that now? And, you know, trying to become more myself in a way, and be more satisfied with who I am. I think it was probably Steve in a recent video I saw that said that the past does not define you. And I think that is quite helpful, because I can be different. We can be different, you know. So and I guess one of the concerns that I have, not to, you know, extend the conversation so much, but you know, how to react, or I should say respond, in a loving, charitable way that says, I care about you, I hear you, I don't want to fight with you, but I also don't want to be a wuss, you know, just, you know. So I think I'm learning slowly, very slowly, and and this is, you know, kind of referring to what Patrick was saying, and maybe some others. I feel like I should know this stuff already. I'm 51, and I've been married for nearly 27 years, and you know, it just seems like I'm just now starting to recognize some things that I should have recognized long ago. And just, I'm finding a greater love for my wife than I ever had before.
Yeah.
But you know, and how she's really put up with me. And we still have a lot of stuff to work through, of course, and work together on. But I think communication, and maybe part of that is being content with oneself, you know. And you know, some have said, like, just kind of keeping, you know, kind of letting the small stuff roll over your shoulders. You know, you had mentioned, you know, what are the mountains to die on and what are not. Well, you know, when you think about a relationship, you know, with family, with wife, with spouse, it really kind of begs the question, what is really important?
Yeah.
And what is really not important? Is this little thing that we're fighting about really the issue, or is it something else? And how can we get through this? Because I mean, I'm becoming more, I guess, how should I say? I don't want to say content with that, but I'm becoming more okay with the fact if she wants to leave, I can't stop her, but I can do all that I can, you know, for myself. And, you know, can I say also to try to demonstrate to her that I love her too. And we're kind of, you know, I'm one who, you know, wants to do things for her. And in the past, the cycle was I would do things for her to try to please her, to kind of appease her. And now I think it's, you know, and I can't convince her of this. I'm beginning to understand that. But just doing what I do for her, not because I have to, but because I want to. And if she accepts it or not, that's on her. And me just being content with and happy with doing it. In other words, you know, I've heard the phrase unconditional love, you know, that doesn't, and that's part of the bad pressure, good pressure too, I think, incorporated in there, in my mind anyway. And that is, you know, loving the other person when they don't love you back, but loving them anyway, and not having their lack of love for you affect how you respond and what you do with them.
Yeah, Tom, such amazing things. Not allowing you to be thrown off by their maybe overt lack of love for you, right? So in my left hand, I have my ego, and in my right hand, I have my soul, or my spirit, or my heart. And our ego has certainly different desires and aims, right? We want to fuck and we want to eat and we want to keep our family safe. We want to avoid dying. We want to feel up higher up on the hierarchy, have more power. Yeah. And of course, our soul wants to bloom freedom and love and more Eastern philosophy or religion, or how you believe about breathing the universe through you, breathing God through you, reverberating that into the world without attachment to outcome. We all have both of those pieces, whether we're aware of them or not. I mean, I was not religious at all, and I spent the first 29 years of my life oblivious to any kind of value set, right? It was when I was 29, about 15 years ago, that I actually started to find this work and deep dive into myself in a more values-based way, spiritual way, without a particular religion. I've talked about this with Sven Masterson as well. We've got a podcast, Masters in Manhood, around this religion and secular discussions. You could ask about that. So Tom, totally hear you. Back to what you had said, and I know David raised his hand. I'll come to you in a minute, David. So Tom, one thing that you said that really hit me was learning how to be a man. Like, what does it even mean to me? And how do I fit in society, within my family, as to be a man? And what does it mean to be a man needing to make money and egoically succeed in some ways, right, in our Western world? And what does it mean to me to be a man spiritually, values-based, when she hates me right now? What does that mean? Yeah, so just, I know we don't have much time here, Tom, but where do you find is the edge for you right now in your practice? I think you said for her, what was it, for her to be upset with you, and even if you're being your own self, but she's still upset? Where would you say is the edge of difficulty for you right now, Tom?
I think at least one of the variables that's on the edge is just that she doesn't want to talk with me at all. I mean, she wants nothing to do with me. And I, you know, like she sent a text the other day, and she, because I've been trying to, not every day, and I realized that this could be taken as clingy, so I kind of second guessed myself on occasion. But like, I would like leave little notes, I think I did once this week, and I think I did something else before, and she texted me, and she said she doesn't want any of that. She doesn't want she doesn't want me to buy anything, which of course Christmas is coming up, and and the like. And I responded by saying, if I want to buy stuff for you, if I want to give you something, it's up to you to accept it or not. And then I after a while, I texted back and I asked, can you, something to the effect, can you help me understand why you don't want me to give you things? Because I really want to understand. And I didn't expect a response, and she never gave one, which is her prerogative. But I think it's the longingness, seeing that she is also struggling with things, and not wanting to talk with me about it. I guess that's what kind of hurts the most at this point. And I think some of it has to do with the cycle. She is, at least I think that she might be somewhat fearful in terms of, if she becomes vulnerable again, she's just going to get hurt again. And I want the cycle to break for me. I can't live this way anymore.
Yeah.
And it's not just for her, it's for me. So I was even thinking, if she wants me to move out, or if she moves out, okay. I think I'm okay with that. Does it hurt? Oh yeah, it does. But I know I'll make it through.
Yeah, I love it, Tom. You're such in the right place. So welcome to our brotherhood. And
Thank you.
Absolutely. And I'll say this last thing, and then I'll call on David with our last couple of minutes, if you're still there, David. The realization, or the truth, that I never really own anything in this life, in this lifetime. I mean, it's on a piece of paper until I die, and then it moves on, right? But I never really own the land that I'm on, and I'm just renting it for a while. I don't own a person. I don't own my child's set of values. I don't own a woman, right? I don't own the marriage, and that's a huge shock because there are a lot of messages that we're supposed to own things in Western society, and that's a different conversation, right? But I don't own her love. I don't own her affection. I don't own her anything. And that was a huge unveiling for me. That's still weekly takes practice in bringing into my heart and into my soul. And then how do I want to move forward from there? Yeah. Thanks, Tom. So David, are you still there?
I am.
Yeah, please go for it. We have a couple minutes. Go for it.
Okay, well, I was this real quick. What Tom? It sounds like you're on the right track because I've been there myself, and I can say that just recently, my wife and I turned a major corner. So much of what it took me getting there, though, I had to go a slightly different path because I had a wonderful, about it a little over a year ago, I had a wonderful one-on-one call with Steve, and I started watching these videos, and it was incredibly helpful. Two of the main things that he talks about: number one, silencing the little boy; number two, acting like the happily divorced man. What it took for me to get there, I thought, okay, well, I believe all these things and I hear all these things and I can do these things. And I thought I could do them intellectually, but I've been, like, for example, I've been in therapy for decades for anxiety, depression, various things. But one thing I discovered about my therapy is that I wasn't really I was treating symptoms rather than root causes. And finding the root causes of the little boy was huge for me, because once I figured that out, and I also addressed some of it with EFT tapping, which I would highly recommend, but I'm not a clinician, so but I strongly recommend anyone checking out. But it helped rewire my thinking and help me get into that state of mind where I could act more like the happily divorced man. And when I did that, I found myself, it was easier for me to stop sending my wife little text messages to check on, like you say, you're worried about being clingy. And I was worried about that too. But now then I stopped doing that. And when she saw that I was doing work, she kind of got curious. And then she started even doing a little bit of her own work. I can tell that, she's been talking to someone, she's been with a therapist. She's also, had a good friend who has given her a lot of perspective on being a stepfather, which has been a huge challenge for me. The kids are in college now, but we're living apart right now because she's working out of state, and it's actually been fantastic because it's been huge. I would say 3 months ago, we were on the verge of splitting, and I said, look, okay, so if you want to pull the trigger, do it, but just let me know. I need about 6 months to work out, saving up for an apartment, switching my healthcare over, but if you want to pull the trigger, let's get ready to do it. We've been talking about this for a while. So if that's where you are, then just let's own it and let's do it. And she didn't want to. And the other night we had this great conversation that started as a disagreement, but it was very calm. And I just said, I'm only asking if you can try to see this from my perspective for a certain thing, and we had this going, and she's like, what did we just do? And I said, we had a disagreement without insulting without insulting each other and shouting at each other. How cool is that? And she's like, yeah, I like this.
And yeah, David, let me press pause. Anybody, let me press pause. So amazing stuff. I'm sorry that we ran out of time. I ran us out of time. This is a fantastic testimonial. What I'm really hearing is you came to the point where you were willing to let go, number one, and you dug into who you are as a man, a little boy, and we could certainly talk about this much more. And so I have to press pause.
It was doing childhood trauma work that got me to where finding out where the little boy was. I found a fantastic therapist who does childhood trauma work, and that's what opened the door and got me to root causes. But anyway, sorry.
Yeah, no, good stuff. And we all come to this. So David, I'm gonna press pause, and I got to close this out. Thank you. We all come to this work, gentlemen, from different places, but we share the painful gateway to this. I don't think I've ever seen a man come to this work that hasn't had inspiration through incredible pain. And so I can relate to every one of you in that way, including myself. Right? If you want to know more about my particular work, how I work, and my private membership, certainly reach out to me. You can email me directly, no strings attached. Check out my free stuff on my website, greatmenmovemountains.com. And I'll close us out from this quote from John Spence. My definition of success. Success is when your core values and self-concept are in harmony with your daily actions and behaviors. And that's what I want for you. I want for you to feel confident within your daily actions and behaviors. It doesn't need to take 3 hours of meditation a day, but you can have 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. You can join us on these weekly calls, and you can improve your view on life, your freedom, your love, your depth, healing pains from the past, right? In just a few minutes a day with us. So reach out to me if you like. I love that you guys are here. I'll have everyone that came on live. Tom, David, good to see you. Patrick, Rod, appreciate you. Carl, everybody else that was here, gentlemen. I'll see you in the forums and on the next live tribe. Ciao, guys. Have a good weekend. Bye, guys.